Hi, I'm Peter Karsten, CEO at Star Trader, and I'm here to talk to you about breaking the rules for success. Star Trader is a broker that operates in markets where 5 out of 8 billion people in the world live today. AI has broken into this world big time, and the speed of diffusion of AI into different parts of society will be the key to how companies and individuals grow in the future. It's going to be absolutely huge. The way that we use AI is going to be critical for every rebel out there. Now let's look at rebels. First of all, let's think about where the rebel power comes from. I believe that the number one source of power for rebels comes from engagement, taking yourself seriously, taking our situations seriously. That's where everything comes from. The starting point is engagement. Worldwide, about $8.8 trillion is lost every year because of people not being engaged in their work. Most people at work choose to quietly quit. They kind of shut down. Some people do it with a loud quit. Some people do it with a quiet quit. Most people do it with a quiet quit, and a few of us remain fully engaged. That's an incredible number. That's an incredible statistics, and it's true. Now, it matches what my uncle, head doctor, Professor Wilhelm Wyczorkowski, did as a professor at Hamburg's University. He studied two things. He studied partly bilingualism and the effects of that on psychological development. Also, he studied learning, and specifically, he was interested in learning with age. Now, we've all heard that the older you get, the more difficult it is to learn. On average, that's true, but it's not causative, it's correlative. The thing that happens is that we come out of school, we come out of university or wherever, and we relax. Or we get married and we relax. We have children and we relax. We get a big promotion and we relax. Lots of life events can happen to us, and suddenly we relax. And because we relax and say, I don't really want to learn that anymore, that causes us to stop learning. So actually, the responsibility is on our side. If we choose to not learn, if we choose to not be engaged, then our ability to learn goes down. If we choose not to stop learning, our ability to learn goes up all the time. And this is what Billy showed in his research. The ability to learn at the age of 65 can be higher than the ability to learn at the age of 16 if your attitude to work remains constant. If you want to learn, you can continue to increase your ability to learn. You can check that yourself. Ask yourself, if you now would try to learn something brand new, like playing the Rickenbacker bass guitar, and you compare that to yourself at the age of 16, who would learn quicker? Now, a lot of us would actually say that, I actually think I would learn quicker. In my case, I'm absolutely sure of it. So you are an example of someone who learns quicker now than when you were 16 years old. And that's against the old saying that the older you get, the more difficult it is to learn. So it's an attitude question, primarily an attitude question. We can choose not to. So rebel power comes from engagement. That's the starting point. Once you're engaged, and once you really understand that you want to do something, the next question is, how can you get change to happen? And that's when teams come into play. Rebels need leverage. Now, leverage means friends, it means people around you, it means people you work with. If you take cricket, which is a perfect example, you have, in India, you have a wonderful batsman called Kohli, a new guy called Gill, both absolutely amazing. When you watch them go onto the pitch, even before they hit the ball, they've already engaged the audience, and the audience is lifting the team. Teams, working together. That's what gives rebels leverage. That's what really lifts them. And you see that also in companies like the payment company Stripe. They have a program called Capture the Flag. They get people around to solve problems. It's an incredibly good program. Qualcomm, the chip manufacturer who makes a lot of the chips that go into people's phones today, they have a hit squad. If you're good, you get to be part of the hit squad for a while, and then you come back off again. Everyone wants to be part of the hit squad. It's like the thing you want to do. Both Stripe's Capture the Flag program and also Qualcomm's hit squads, both are examples of teams where the key element is not to give people money for doing these great things. With Stripe, the winner of the competition, Capture the Flag, gets a t-shirt. That's it. It's a question of doing things together and creating change together. That's what gives rebels the leverage that they need. Now, if we break into the unknown, if we try to understand what this new world is going to look like, the starting point is engagement. And with engagement, you automatically get knowledge. And as your knowledge expands, you realize the full size of the universe around you, and actually the size of the unknown, the things that you recognize as being unknown, increase. The more engaged you are, the more you know. The more you know, the more you understand that there is out there that you don't know. And this then gives you a world where you can start thinking about novelty, you can recognize new things. Your curiosity will drive you to think about new perspectives, different ways of thinking about things. You will definitely want diversity and different opinions because you feel comfortable, because you have the knowledge. And authenticity is key to the whole thing. If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in the people around you, then you're going nowhere. So authenticity is also one of the key elements to being a rebel and really wanting to change the world. So let's rip into novelty for a moment. What does novelty really mean? Well, there's a big study that was done where they looked at couples who live together, and they were offered the option of doing something exciting or pleasant or simply a continuation of what they've done before. When they tried to second guess each other to understand what the other person would want, typically they said, oh, my partner just wants continuation. But when they were asked as individuals what they wanted, most of them wanted excitement. And suddenly you have this wonderful thing where, wow, excitement is what people want. They then did a study where they looked at couples where some couples were offered excitement and some couples were offered continuation as their stimulus. And the couples that stayed together 12 months later correlated strongly with the ones that had been given excitement. So we want excitement. Excitement makes us relate to each other. Excitement makes everything more fun. So don't underestimate yourself and your own, and I feel the same. I should not underestimate my own desire for excitement, and I should give that excitement to everyone around me too. So important, so important. Now, in this excitement, we then have some boundaries. So some boundaries are good. There are some good red tapes that we should follow, some basic guidelines in life that we should follow. They might be our own, typically. Sometimes they're set by someone else. Bad red tape costs about 9.9% of global GDP. So bad red tape is a really bad thing, but there is such a thing as good red tape. And that good red tape should come from ourselves, not from elsewhere. But in terms of novelty, we should go out, we should all go out and explore. And if other people are taking the lead, join them, say yes. Because we want stimulation. It's good for our lives, it's good for our relationships, it's good for those around us. The pushback, and on each section here I'm going to talk about the pushback. The pushback will be that some people will come to us and say, new does not mean better. Well, okay, that's true. But if you're going to look for better, then you certainly will sometimes go in the wrong direction and sometimes go in the right direction. Both will happen. Curiosity is the next thing. So we've found something new. Why? Well, we found something new because we were curious, because we went out looking for it. And so how does this really work? Well, if we think back in our lives, then we all think, if I would have known, then I would have acted differently. If I go 2 years back instead of 1 year, if I would have known, I would have done, go back really far back. And the further back we go, the more we realize that at the time we were wrong. And this wrongness kind of drags along with us. That means that we are probably wrong right now. Most of the things I'm telling you now are probably wrong. Most of the things you think I'm saying are probably wrong. Now, that's quite fun. But the thing that's most hilarious about it is that it means we should ask humble questions, simple questions. Because if we all assume that we ourselves probably are wrong in a lot of the things that we're thinking today, as proven by what we've done before, then simple questions can often open up some of those things, reduce that. So simple questions are really, really good. Humble, simple questions. Another thing around curiosity is to let change happen. Now, letting change happen within yourself is one thing, but letting change happen within your friends and those around you is more difficult, because if a friend of ours comes in with a new haircut, then we can give them a hard time for having a new haircut. But that hard time that we give them when we ridicule them for making a change means that they choose not to change. Less excitement. We need to think hard, and I need to think hard about everyone around me and allow them to change, enable them to change. Because if I do, then other people allow me to change as well. It goes both ways. So curiosity cuts both ways. Let me grow, let you grow. Those two things happen at the same time. The pushback on everything to do with curiosity is to focus on urgency, not focus on the thing that's important. So very typically we do lots of things, busy, on things that are urgent, and then we forget about the big picture. Drink more coffee and do more stupid things quickly. That's kind of the message. And lots of companies have tried to find ways of creating creativity within their companies. Let me take a big, boring company called IKEA. Now, we all have things from IKEA, world famous company. They built their whole concept around the idea of having these big boxes where you go and you buy your things. And a few years ago, they realized that they had really got themselves caught, because all the customers had gone online and all the customers had started behaving differently. So Ingvar Kamprad's successor, Jesper Brodin, he went out and traveled around worldwide to hear what customers had to say. And customers said, too inconvenient and so forth. So what he did, and this is the nice thing about IKEA, Jesper Brodin, he created the banana card, and he printed out a number of little cards, like playing cards, with a picture of a banana on them. And he gave each one in his teams a banana card that they kept in their pocket. And he said, okay, look, I want you to go out and try something new and make a stupid mistake. And when people come to you and say you should not have made that mistake, take out your banana card. I just play your banana card and said, I still have my banana. So you're allowed to go bananas. And the consequence of Jesper Brodin's program at IKEA has been that people have tried crazy things and the results have been really good. Now they have in-town small show centers, They work really well. They have online delivery. They have assembly in people's homes. All of those things were things that they did not do today, all with the help of the banana card. I like the banana card. That's the reason I did that. Another thing which is important if you're a rebel is to have a perspective on the world so that you understand in which world you're moving, because you need a direction. Now, if you want a direction, then you must have a strategy, and you must have a map. You have to have an image of the world. If you don't have an image of the world, then how can you have a direction? So you need some type of an image around you. It can be a trading strategy, it can be some image, some way of thinking about the world. And I was talking to one of my colleagues recently about salary as the CEO. It's a conversation we have quite often. Now, from my perspective, it's very, very important that the playing field is level. So same contribution, same salary. That type of fairness needs to exist within any company. But actually, the big difference in salaries, the big inequality in salaries is not inside a company. The big difference is between companies. Overperforming companies pay more and underperforming companies pay less. That's the typical rule. So it's actually, the big difference sits between companies' ability to rise as opposed to an individual within a company. That's the big difference. So that's just one example of a perspective. When you realize that, it changes the way that you think about salaries. When you think about businesses, one thing that drives businesses worldwide at the moment is lower dynamism. So most companies are getting more boring. Why? Because we are aging in our jobs without moving around. There are fewer new firms, and in general, our mobility is lower. We move around from place to place to a lesser extent. We change jobs to a lesser extent. Those are bad things, especially now in the times of AI, because in the times of AI, the whole market, the whole world will change, and the way that we define our jobs will change. So our own psychological mobility needs to change. Again, these are just examples of perspectives, ways of thinking about things. The pushback when it comes to perspective and thinking like this is stop talking, get back to work. Well, sometimes you do need to think. Diversity is another interesting area. Now, when we think about diversity, we typically think about superficial things, but diversity happens at every level. Let me take one example. So ByteDance is a company that now has 2 billion active users on its various platforms. The biggest one is TikTok. And TikTok has been caught out by this AI revolution just like everyone else. And the way that ByteDance is managing that is really clever. The way that they've done it is that they have parallel teams that operate inside the business, and not just within TikTok, also within the other ByteDance businesses. And these parallel teams go in parallel and try to solve how this should be done. Really nice. So they have internal diversity. They have own ideas coming through from different parts of the business. So TikTok Taco is a great example. TikTok Taco is a unit within TikTok, within ByteDance, that uses OpenAI's technology, or ChatGPT technology if you prefer. And they're trying to implement that in new ways. In order to do that, they are buying chips like crazy. NVIDIA graphical processor units, GPUs. They're buying bucket loads of these things. So during this year alone, if you look at the top companies of Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba, and ByteDance, they've spent about $1 billion on NVIDIA's A800 chip, buying those chips, 100,000 units. In 2024, they've already placed orders for $4 billion worth of these chips in order to operate their new AI systems. These are big things. So lots of different teams doing similar things or doing different things, different approaches to these things. These are all examples of diversity. Another thing with diversity, which I think is really important, is to think about walking into a meeting or walking into a dinner or lunch with some friends, knowing that there will be people there who are not like us. Now, as soon as you walk into a situation where people are not like us, it means we prepare differently. We raise our level. We know that we have to be more clear in what we say. If we want a message to go across, we have to communicate it more clearly. We have to be more structured. All in all, it raises our level, raises our levels. Diversity helps. It really, really does help. And the pushback on that is, well, if we all think the same, we can perform faster. True, but only true to a certain extent, because we can also run in the wrong direction together really quickly if we all think the same. The next thing is authenticity. Now, rebels are real. They are engaged. Rule breakers are engaged, they're serious, they believe in what they're trying to do, they have a strategy. That's what they're trying to execute. They're trying to move forward. So who are they? And how do they think? Well, the starting point, I think, is to think, okay, well, we are who we think we are. So what's the narrative, and where does the narrative come from? Where do we choose to be influenced? Jean-Paul Sartre said that we choose who we are because we choose the influences that we have. So what are the media channels that we use to influence ourselves, to form us, to shape ourselves? Is there AI involved? Is there an AI that's telling us how to think, what to think? Maybe. We allow ourselves to be manipulated like that. Who are the friends and so forth? How do we? So we are who we think we are. So formulating the landscape that shapes us is very, very important to all of us. That's one thing. Another thing in trying to understand rule breakers and rebels is to look at if there is a gap between the image that we portray and who we actually are. Now, if there's a gap between our image and who we actually are, then there will be psychological tension and we will be hurt. It will really hurt us. It's not a good thing. So as far as possible, we need to try to pull the image of ourselves as close to ourselves as possible, so that as far as possible, we are true to who we really are. So when we're working with rebels, we need to look at that dynamism within the rebel. If there's a big gap, then it's going to be very difficult for the rebel to actually do something and contribute something, because too many internal psychological problems. But if they're close, if the image and the reality are close, then rebels can really do a lot. Another thing which I find quite interesting is to think about values. Now, the values that we carry within ourselves are partly innate and hereditary. They come from within ourselves, and they're partly learned values from experience. In the 1990s, there was a big study where they looked at two big countries where for a couple of generations, people had tried to stop the influence of the family and tried to get the state to instead put everyone on a level playing field. And surprisingly, when they looked at the families that overperformed in the beginning of the 1900s relative to the families in the 1990s, the correlation was huge. So very typically, despite several generations of attempts to eradicate the influence of the family, the correlation between high-performing families 100 years ago and now was still very similar. So the hereditary aspect is big, but it's also very possible to learn new values and from experience. So those are sort of some additional things that just when trying to understand ourselves. And from our backgrounds, we all have some good things that we can carry with us. So we can definitely move. There's a high mobility chance for us, but a lot of us choose not to move. We choose to sit where we were. From an identity perspective, another thing I'm interested in is thinking about how people identify. Do they identify as part of this company? Do they identify as being loyal to the shareholders, or loyal to the CEO, or loyal to their profession, or loyal to something else? When you're looking at the effects that people can have, this is like a gameplay theory. Looking at where people's loyalties lie is often an interesting thing. Above all, it's important to stay true. If you execute a strategy and you don't believe in it, then regardless if you win or lose, you're not going to feel good. Vice versa, if you execute a strategy and you do believe in it, then regardless if you win or lose, you will think positively about it. Even if we lose, you can go back to your way of thinking and adapt your way of thinking so that you can win in the future. So staying true, I think, is very, very important. The best example I have of authenticity is actually a cleaning woman. So after my father finished his time as a diplomat, he did some consulting for a couple of companies. And one of the companies he went to was a big furniture manufacturer, and they were making various wood products. Big company with many hundred people inside, and they had quality problems. So my father, having looked at this for a few weeks, he pulled together everyone in the whole company and said, okay, so we have a quality problem here. Who, out of all of us here, hundreds of people, who here feels that their job is not a direct contributor to quality? And there was silence. So my father said, okay, look, I'll just stand here and wait until someone says something. And finally there was an old lady, my age, who put her hand up and said, my job does not contribute to the quality of our product. My father asked, well, what do you do? Well, I do cleaning. I do cleaning over by those machines over there. So my father said, okay, fine, good. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for being brave. And he asked, who works in that area? And there was a big guy, a big sort of bodybuilder style guy, who put his hand up and says, yeah, I work over there. And my father asked him, does it matter to you? Does it matter to the quality of your work that this woman is doing her cleaning work over there? And he said, well, without her cleaning work, I would have no chance. I run so quickly all the time. If there are wood chippings in the way or whatever, everything goes down. I am 100% dependent on her work for the quality of my work. And the woman started to cry. And she said, that's the first time anyone has ever said something about the importance of my work. Now, I'm so impressed by that woman. This is an authentic rebel that we're talking about right here. She was prepared to put her hand up and say what she thought. And I think it's awesome. Really big applause for that. So standing out is a big thing. And the pushback on all of this is to say, okay, authenticity, that's all fake news. I don't believe in any of this. But I think we all know that if you want to create change, you have to be authentic. And if you want people around you to be part of creating change, they need to be authentic too. Really important. So how can this be killed? Well, killing the messenger is the classic thing. So you have someone who comes in and says, I want to create this change, and you have resistance. You can have resistance among friends, you can have resistance within a company, within a group, within any group of people. And these resistances come in two basic flavors. One is passive-aggressive and one is undermining. And I think we've all recognized this. I've certainly seen a lot of this in my lifetime. Passive-aggressive means excluding people when there are meetings that are important. It means praising today's results as if that's something magical. It's a question of not cooperating with rebels. Shutting down communications. So if a rebel is trying to do something big, then 24 hours on the record, you just shut down the website where everything is being described. So these things do happen, they're for real. Hoarding information is another one, and a big one is to divert people so that they start doing irrelevant stuff. That's all passive-aggressive, and it exists in every group of people. Another method of killing the messenger is to undermine them. You question their credibility. People can very subtly plant seeds of doubt around people who are trying to create change, spread rumors, and generally create and manage a world or a perception which is negative about the person who's trying to create change. Lots of different ways. So what can we do? Well, a couple of things. One is that we need to actively, in my opinion, think about how to cultivate rebels. We need to cultivate the rebel in ourselves, and we need to cultivate the rebels around us. We need to help them grow. Innovation is something really sensitive. It's very easy to kill it. So nurturing that is an important thing. And a starting point for that, in my view, is to always start by saying, great, when people come with a new idea. And obviously, a lot of ideas are not good. But if we just focus on growing the good ideas can push out the bad ideas. So focus on the good things. Also, identifying and neutralizing the messenger killers is important. So we need to listen hard to discover which individuals are trying to kill change. Flattery of status quo is a standard thing. So we need to be, sensitive to these subtle off signals that people use in order to kill messengers. Rebels always want a T-shirt. So recognizing people who do something special is really important. From an organizational standpoint, I think the number one thing is to get the rebels as close to the metal as possible. So direct impact. Here comes a positive change, bang, it goes into action. As soon as you put some type of organization, like a head of innovation in place, you kill innovation, because suddenly innovators start delivering into some architecture which they're not really excited about. Rebels want to be as close to the action as possible. Let them take the risk. That's, I think, the biggest organizational message I have. So let it be parallel, a bit like ByteDance, and open playing field. Let innovation compete. However, as a CEO, I'm sure you recognize that there are many situations where I've had rebels around me where I need to find a way of managing them. I need to find a way of helping them out. And I look at a few elements. One is the disruptive element that some rebels will have. And for handling that, I try to guide them so that rebels avoid offending people. It's not necessary. Quite often you can create change without offending people. And getting rebels into teams that do deliver is critical. Otherwise you get lone wolves who just go out into nowhere. So getting people engaged in the right teams, I think is really good. And also lean development, so focusing on the next big unknowns and thinking hard about those things. That's, to me, also a key element in managing the sort of disruptive element in rebels. And if that doesn't work, then okay, a solid hand on the shoulder, we need to talk. I had one wonderful conversation with Pekka Ala-Pietilä when I was at Nokia once upon a time, where I had made a mistake, and all he did was just take me aside and talk to me about how I was thinking. And once we had a mutual understanding about that, we agreed how we would go forward, and everything worked out really well. But a solid hand on the shoulder can sometimes be a good thing, really good thing. In terms of organizational norms and policies, it's very easy to fly around and say, okay, I don't believe in any of these norms or any of these policies, I want to break everything down. Okay, well that's great, but if you take yourself seriously, if you are engaged, then before you let loose on one side, you need to work out what you're trying to do next. So focusing the mind on where the next foot will land, I think, is a key element for managing rebels. And also having a shared understanding with everyone that the thing that is feeding us today is the fact that we actually did a fairly good job in the past. So when we create change and go forward, before we break the old stuff, we need to work out what we're going to do next. So it's kind of the same, but on a corporate level. If we have a salary today, or if we have an income today, then that's because we actually did a fairly good job after all. So, okay, so free the rebels. So how do we free the rebels? The starting point is you and I. I need you to be free, and you need me to be free. So we need to let each other be free. That's the whole starting point to the whole thing. All of the aspects of freedom. And in terms of a road or a roadmap to freedom, well, it's simple. We need to be real and go. And it's not more complicated. So, all right, so grab your account, whatever that is, try to work out which type of product you want to use, get the customized marketing support that is relevant for your business, talk to your global account manager, to your dedicated account manager, in whichever city that person is, and join us now, and let's go. Thank you.